why you're more intuitive than you may think. My name is Leah Chantel. Welcome back to my channel. And last week I talked a little bit about what intuition feels like in the body, and more specifically practices on how to maintain the body so that you're primed to receive intuition. And today we're going to go into a bit more detail of what intuition actually feels like. We all have it and we all use it in slightly different ways. So when you have a feeling about something in the pit of your stomach and you're just not sure whether or not you should move forward and you're feeling anxious, so that could be an anxiety attack, but it could also be your intuition trying to tell you something about the situation. Maybe it's just not the right timing to go ahead with this new project or to get to know this new person. Or maybe the person in question isn't who they present themselves to be. And that's what that little gut feeling in your stomach is all about. We have had that since ancient times, and it has helped us survive in some pretty crazy situations where we didn't have a lot of tools to communicate, at least not in the same way that we do today. And so we relied a lot on our gut instinct to tell us if an opportunity was a go or not. We also used our intuition to tell if there was a saber-toothed tiger nearby or a predator we should be avoiding. And then later, as we evolved as humans, we used language to kind of talk to each other and tell each other when a saber-toothed tiger was around. But we all still have this sense of intuition inside us, and it's very helpful because there's a lot of wrong information out there. There are people trying to promote things out in the world that don't really make sense or have wrong information. And when we don't use our intuition, we're more liable to get sucked into somebody else's agenda, and it could be completely wrong. And that person may not even know that their agenda is completely wrong, but they intellectually believe in it so strongly, and then they convince us to get involved because of their intellectual thought on the matter, when really intuitively it may not be good for us at all. Think about the salesperson who's pushing a shampoo on you. And the shampoo is supposed to be a really great product, but the product is really part of a pyramid scheme. Don't you feel that when somebody is trying to push something on you, like a twinge in your stomach, and you kind of know it? Well, that's your intuition working. And all we really want to do, for the sake of this lesson, is increase our awareness of it. So a lot of people do feel their intuition in their stomach, but maybe that's not where you feel it for you. Maybe you feel a tingling on your forehead. Maybe you get tightness in your throat or your chest. Or maybe you just get a sense of warmth throughout your whole body. Whatever that signal is, and it could be for something negative, but it could also be a pleasant feeling of, yes, I should go ahead on this project. Maybe there's a class that you've never even heard of or tried at the gym, but when you hear about it, you get a warm feeling throughout your whole body. That's a good green light intuitive hit that's telling you you should go and try that new class. So in the same way, we also get red light intuitions. We get warnings when people may not have the best influence or the best intentions for our lives. And it can be harder to pick up on it online, but you can pick up on online. But where you get a really good sense and good feel for people, especially if you really want to get to know them long term, is to meet them in person. When you watch their body language and you see them, your own body lights up and will tell you more information about whether or not to proceed with a certain relationship or a certain person who could be a life partner or a business partner. In the middle, you also get yellow light intuition. And what that will mean is maybe this person could be a good match for you, but it's not the right time yet. I had this feeling recently, actually, when I was getting to know somebody new, seemed like a nice person, but something in my intuition just said, don't make any big commitments with this person just yet. Just hang tight and get to know them a little bit longer, but don't cut them out of your life. And that's a really valuable signal as well. It's not the same one as when you feel kind of tight and you think somebody is bad for you. It's more of a feeling of hesitation in my body, and I feel it in the back of my neck, like something pulling me back when I get a yellow light intuition. And it's basically instructing me to slow down. You can still proceed and have a relationship with the person that you're interacting with, but you just want to take things slow and watch them carefully and make sure you're getting to know them very well. And in general, yellow light intuition is probably really deep wisdom when we're getting to know anybody in a new relationship. It's really rare that we get a green light intuition on a person right away where you just immediately jump into whatever agenda they're selling, although it can happen. And when it does, you can follow it and it could be amazing. But usually we get yellow light guidance around most people, where we just need to take our time and get to know them before we put too much trust or too much faith into their hands. And some of the common mistakes that intuitives make actually is that they ignore their yellow light intuition with new friends or new partners, and they proceed to go gangbusters and start a relationship and heavily invest and buy a house together. And then eventually the relationship kind of falls apart. And it's because they didn't do that long-term, careful investigation at the beginning. They didn't follow their yellow light guidance. Some intuitives are very good at knowing when they have green light guidance and they know when to push forward on something, and it could be a business opportunity. And that can be amazing. If you hit a green light intuition fast and you hit an opportunity fast, you could be getting big returns. And so there's definite positives to following that type of intuition. There's also a lot of positives being very aware of when negative people are around you, because there are predators and nasty people in our society that hide in plain sight, and you don't necessarily want to expose them. That's dangerous to do that. But if you ever get a feeling in the pit of your stomach that you're not sure about somebody, you don't have to openly say it or spread a nasty rumor about them. I don't recommend that. I've seen intuitives do that before, and it's not very nice to do that, and you could be wrong. But you know what I would do is I wouldn't ignore it. I would just try to set some boundaries very subtly without saying anything negative and just try to avoid the person. That's the best thing to do with a red light intuition. But some of the descriptions I've been giving you with the parts of my body that feel certain intuitions could be very different for you. Maybe when I feel a yellow light intuition at the back of my neck, you might be feeling it in your lower back or your stomach. Or maybe you feel red light intuition up here and you get a big headache when you're not supposed to do something. It can be anywhere in your body that lights up, but the point is you want to pay attention to it, write it down in a journal, and make sure you're acknowledging that you are getting guidance, because we often just go through our days on autopilot and then we miss all of the intuition and all of the hits that we get throughout the day, and then we think we're not intuitive. But we actually are intuitive. We just forgot, and we need to pay attention to get that intuitive ability to come back. So some of the ways you can test your intuition and see how well it's working for you is you can go to a restaurant and you can scan the menu and see what looks good and see what lights up in your body. If there's a particular dish that lights you up and you think that's going to be the delicious one you should have, or vice versa, if the waiter is recommending something and you're feeling like, ooh, I might get sick eating that, you should pay attention to your vibes. And restaurants are great ways to do that and practice without too much pressure or commitment. And then as you get better in small ways following your intuition, when the big decisions come up, you're going to be more clear receiving an intuitive hit. You may still have your intellectual mind thinking about all the different options, and that's okay, but you're going to have a very clear line to your intuition, so you'll know what your intuition is trying to tell you when you are making a big decision. And you won't have that paralysis of analysis situation happening too much again, because your intuition will lean you into the right option, and maybe it takes some brainstorming sessions to hash out what that exact plan is perfectly and make your intellect happy with the plan that you're going to go with. But your intuition should be on board and should be pointing you in the right direction, right? Especially when you're choosing between several options. Your intuition will usually lean you into one direction, and it's typically one of the more uncomfortable directions from my experience. So if you're considering moving maybe 2 hours down the road versus halfway across the country, usually I would say your intuition will push you a little more to go halfway across the country. At least that's been my experience. But having said that, maybe not for you. Maybe you've had a very challenging life and your intuition is trying to steer you into something a little bit more calm and quiet, and that's perfectly valid too. Regardless of where your intuition is trying to take you, usually the place it's taking you is somewhat of a surprise. So usually it's the more unexpected option that your intuition is leaning you towards, but if you're a very unconventional person and you're always taking the unconventional option, maybe your intuition will steer you towards being a little bit more conservative for those people. It all depends on what type of person you are and where you want to go in life, but your intuition, you can attune it to stay in the same direction that you want to go. Basically, you do that by asking your intuition a question about your future, saying, I want to buy the best house long-term for me and my family. Where should I live and where should I go buy it? Which broker should I go with in order to purchase this house? When you use your intuition like that, it will guide you and it will route you to the right place, the right time, the right people. But you need to ask first. If you don't ask your intuition any questions or for any support and you're trying to do it all from your head and you forget to ask your intuition, then it can't come in and support you. So what have we talked about today? We've talked about that we're actually more intuitive than we're generally aware of, but we're tending to go through our days on autopilot. There are several different types of intuition. There is red light intuition that warns you to stay away from a particular person or situation. Then there's the yellow light, which is often coming up in new relationships and telling us to slow down and pay attention to people before we jump into relationships with them. And then there's green light intuition, which is amazing, which will tell you sometimes to pick up a new hobby or to pick up a new business and just get going. And it can be very exciting if you're an ambitious person. We also talked about practicing in small situations. If you are confident in using your intuition to select a dish at a restaurant, it's going to be easier for you to access it when you're in a big life decision and you're making a challenging choice. Usually intuition will give you the most surprising option when you are making a choice. That was another point that I wanted to make. Unless you're a very unconventional person and you really like to push the boundaries by nature, then maybe your intuition will tell you to slow down. But usually it's going to tell you something surprising, something challenging. And last but not least, I just want to reiterate that we're all intuitive, but we may feel it differently in our bodies. Some of us will feel it in our stomach, some it could be the chest, some it could be the head. Although I find usually it's below the neck. But sometimes you can feel things in your head, up here and in the back of your head. But our head can also be thinking too, so it gets a little bit trickier to discern in your head what you're feeling. Whereas the rest of your body is a pretty clear conduit where you can tell what kinds of intuition are coming in. Definitely journal about your experiences, because when you journal it and write it down, you're going to have evidence that this happened before and you're going to remember. You're not going to let it forget and slip off the top of your head. And then you're going to read a very exciting book, which is basically your journal entries of how you're having a direct experience with life, how you are living the way that we were intended to live back in our ancestral days when we had to deal with saber-toothed tigers and we didn't have a lot of options in terms of language. Language and information can be very deceiving in today's society depending on who is giving the message. And we may choose to follow certain types of authority figures, but then there are other ones who are in conflict with them, and then it can be a huge mess. So that's why our intuition gives us the most practical options to live our lives and do what's best for us and what's best for the greater whole of humanity. I hope that all made sense and you enjoyed this video. Definitely click subscribe if you want to see more tips on intuition in the future. I'm planning to release more lessons about this to give you a more in-depth understanding, and I'm looking forward to teaching you then. I hope you have a great week and take care. Bye now.